drop and give me 25. I'm the gunny.
It's time for the quarterback with Gunny Signs.
It's time for the gunny. It's time.
The quarter deck. Lights. Get online right now. You got 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. The quarter deck.
It's time for the gunny.
Hello, my bunch of knuckle-dragging, beer-drinking, hard-charging devil dogs. You're listening to the quarter deck. I am your host, Miguel, the Gunny Signs.
Get out the bus!
I do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend
The Constitution of the United States.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
This week on the quarter deck, we're going to touch a little bit on VA benefits and some of the things that are available for service members and veterans once they're out of the service. We're also going to take a look at our book with the 1st Marine Division in Iraq in 2003, No Better Friend, No Worst Enemy. The quarter deck. You're listening to the quarter deck with Miguel, the Gunny Signs. And oh boy, it seems like it's been forever since we've been on here recording a new episode of our podcast. But let me tell you guys, it's been a busy time. I know the last time that I spoke with you guys, I had just finished my Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree at the Academy of Art University, and it has been hectic, let me tell you. For the past 2 years now, I continued on with my educational degree, and I decided to move on to get a master's degree. Oh boy. And let me tell you, it's been a roller coaster ride since I started the master's program, but on a good note is that I am officially done. I am a graduate. Can you guys believe that? And we'll touch on that here in just a bit, but I'm going to be focusing on talking about the VA educational benefits regarding that. Now, for me, as many of you guys know, all my degrees that I've gotten them in photography, and now my master's is in communications and media technologies. That deals with, podcasting, writing scripts, making videos, using cameras to produce productions, documentaries, and things like that. And for those of you guys that are interested, I do have my actual YouTube channel and my website for Miguel Signs Photography that is listed on YouTube, and everything is there, and you can actually go there and check out some of the videos, some of the productions that I've actually produced throughout the past couple of years. Now, getting back to talking about education benefits. Last week, I had one of the Marines that I've had back in 1997 when I was still down there in Sierra Battery, 5th Battalion, 11th Marines, and he actually reached out to me. Now, this was one of the Marines that, that we had that was a challenge. He was a challenge for the leadership to make sure that he was capable of accomplishing all the tasks that were assigned to him and things like that. Now, of course, you're always going to have those Marines, the 10% that are going to struggle and they're going to have a hard time, but that doesn't mean that you're going to give up on them. You're going to continue to train them and make sure that they get the best that they can possibly do to fulfill that contract. Anyway, he has been a faithful listener to the podcast, and he wanted to move on and talk a little bit more about VA benefits and some of the things that veterans can do now that they're out of the service or they're getting out. Now, as many of you guys know, I worked as a VA benefit advisor for almost 6 years after I retired out of the service. So that's basically what I focused on. I focused on teaching all the separations classes to all the active duty service members when they were getting out of the service to prepare them to be able to use their VA benefits. Now, I can say that for me, I took full advantage of all of my VA benefits to make sure that I was able to accomplish all the education and degrees that I wanted to do. And I got to tell you guys, I used them to the best of my ability to make sure that I got everything up to a master's degree. Now, as many of you know, there are different types of education benefits that are out there. Of course, we have the Montgomery GI Bill. Not too many people have that anymore Some do pay into it when they're in recruit training, but the majority of almost everybody nowadays elects to use the post 9/11 education benefit. Now, there's a lot of people that tell me all the time, but my drill instructors told me that I needed to pay into this benefit because I had to select either one or the other, and that's all I was going to get. Now, the way that it works for me and the way that it works for those individuals that did pay into the Montgomery GI Bill, if you have multiple periods of service, there's actually a way for you to use them both to actually get additional education benefits. So instead of getting 36 months of the education benefit, there is a possible way for you to get 48 months of this benefit to benefit you. Now, the way that this works is, so let's say that you're on active duty service. You have multiple periods of service. You can elect to use your Montgomery GI Bill first, use up all 36 months of that benefit, and now you can apply for your post 9/11 education benefit and get an additional 12 more months of that benefit to give you a total of 48 months. Now you can use that in conjunction with the two and stuff and everything, and you can also use the benefit in conjunction with your VRNE program for those individuals who are disabled and they need additional training because of their disabilities and stuff. That program goes into that. Now, with that program, that can be a whole podcast by itself. So later on, we'll focus a little bit more on what that benefit does for you. Now, one of the things that, that we as veterans and as service members that are getting out of the service that you need to remember is the fact that these benefits that you have are benefits that you earned because of your time that you were in the service. I cannot even count how many veterans, how many service members that I've talked to that they simply just say, I don't care. I'm not using any of it. I don't want it. I don't care about it. It's not going to help me any. And I don't even know why it's there. And I'm here to tell you that these benefits are very, very beneficial to you, to help you to get your education and get you on the road to being successful now that you're getting out of the service. Those of you that have gone out recently, or some of you may be in the verge of actually getting out of the service, it's going to be a culture shock now that you're leaving the active duty service and getting out into the regular world. Because guess what? The reality is now that you're going to have to get a job. You're going to have to get a job. You're going to have to be interviewed. You're going to have to do a resume. You're going to have to do all those things to make sure that you will be successful. You're going to have to be ready to accept whatever job is going to be out there. And for a lot of people, that's an actual humbling experience. In my case, I got out of the service as a senior staff NCO, and here I was now getting a job after being gone for so many years without a degree at the time. And I had a 21-year-old young lady who was my supervisor telling me what to do. So it can be challenging. And that's one of the things that you as a service member getting out of the service have to be prepared for. So having these benefits are going to be very, very beneficial to you because you can use them to go to school to get a degree, no matter what you want to do. If you don't want to go to school and actually go to a higher education learning university, college, whatever, you can use your education benefits for almost anything. As long as the VA has approved the program that you're trying to do, there are many, many things that you can use these benefits for. Vocational training, OJTs, apprenticeship programs, flight training. There's even that on there for you to be able to utilize that stuff to help you to get trained on many, many jobs that are out there. You just have to go for it. You have to get out there and reach for it and want it to get all the training. So as we can all see, there's many, many, many benefits that are out there for veterans, service members to take advantage of. And that's one of the things that, I talk to a lot about with them because I want to make sure that they take full advantage of all the benefits that they can use now that they're getting out of the service, because they're only going to benefit from it themselves. And those individuals that always tell me like, hey, whatever, I'm not going to use it. I don't care about it. I don't want to use it. It's there to help veterans and service members benefit from them and get that training, that education, even if it's not, like I said earlier, the higher education. If you don't want to go back to college and be on campus, hey, perfectly fine. But any program that's certified by the VA, you can attend that program as long as it's certified and the VA is going to pay for your training. I know I had a lot of people that actually gone through flight training. They gone to some kind of flight school that was tied into some kind of degree program, because then the VA will cover the majority of all of the costs for that. Now, I know a lot of people that do that, and they have to have the private pilot license already done in order for them to get into those kinds of programs. But can you imagine, being able to use your VA education benefits to actually learn how to fly a plane? And honestly, I never really seen a lot of service members that wanted to learn how to fly a plane until I retired and I moved here, and I was working at board the air station here in Yuma. And a lot of these enlisted young Marines, corporals, sergeants, and so forth, they wanted to get out and get their pilot's license because they wanted to learn how to fly. And the majority of them wanted to learn how to fly like rotary aircraft, helicopters and so forth. These are just some of the few things that you can use your education benefits for once you get out of the service or anything like that. Now, especially for individuals like me that ended up retiring after 20 some years of service, we have no education once we came into the service. I can remember back in the 90s when I first came in, if you got out of the service and you had an associate's degree, you were able to get a job that's going to pay a good amount of money, and everybody was going to be looking to hire you because you had an associate's degree. Today, that's not the case. That's not the case anymore, because now most employers want you to have a bachelor's degree at a minimum, and a lot of them want you to have a master's degree. So take advantage of these benefits. Use them. Take advantage of them. If you have any questions regarding them, hey, put the questions for me on my Facebook page so we can discuss them and go into more detail regarding the benefits that are out there. And like I said, later on in future episodes, we're going to have the opportunity to expand on these things and actually get into a lot more detail of all these other benefits. So just not forget, take advantage of the benefits, use them to your advantage. That way you can become a better, well-rounded person and use all of your skills and things that you learned while you're on active duty and put them to good use out there in the civilian world. The Quarterdeck is brought to you by Miguel Science Photography. From the beginning of your family to the first birthday and beyond. Whether it's a retirement or a Marine Corps ball, Miguel Science Photography is there to make memories that will last a lifetime. Miguel Science Photography is a certified veteran-owned business. Contact them at miguelsciencephotography.com.
What we're going to do right here is go back. Way back into time.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to the Quarterdeck with Miguel the Gunny Science. It's now time for us to move on and keep going on with our story that we've been reading in our book with the 1st Marine Division in Iraq of 2003. No greater friend, no worst enemy. Now, when we left off last time, we were in the process of when the commanding general of 1st Marine Division was getting all his leadership together and getting them prepared to get their units ready to deploy into Kuwait in preparations to liberate the country of Iraq. So let's go ahead and continue on here and move on with the actual operation planning of what was going on to prepare the division to head out and do its mission in Iraq. 1st Marine Division had always played a key role in plans for defending the Arabian Peninsula. Now, however, the division's changed its focus from the defense of the Arabian Peninsula to the eradication of the Iraqi regime. August marked the arrival of a new G3 plans officer, Lieutenant Colonel Paul Kennedy, replacing Lieutenant Colonel John Meyer, who assumed command of 1st Battalion, 1st Marines. He joined an already experienced planning team, including Lieutenant Colonel Mike Groan from Intelligence, Lieutenant Colonel, United States Army, Gary Smythe from Division Fires, Communications Engineer, Air and Logistics Planners rounded out the team. The 1st Marine Division, as the major ground combat element, GCE, of 1st Marine Expeditionary Force 1 MEF, would fight as part of the ground scheme and maneuver developed by the CFLCC. The CFLCC was a high-level headquarters and coordinated the land actions of Marine, Coalition, and U.S. Army ground forces in southern Iraq. The CFLCC commander was Lieutenant General David McCarran, and headquarters was primarily staffed with Army personnel. Although there were a number of Marine representatives and liaison officers, as the CFLCC plan matured, 1st Marine Division underwent a number of mission changes, often within short notice. Before crossing the line of departure, the division was to plan and replan for operations against An Azariah, An Barash, and South Ramallah oil fields, Highway 7 to Al Qut, the Tigris River, Highway 6, and along the unfinished Highway 1 corridor. Planning would continue with the Diyala River crossing Baghdad, Bakbada, Tikrit, Baji, added before combat operations cease. Seamlessly, every combination of unit and objective was explored, and each of these sequentially proposed scenarios required detailed planning. The staff paid special attention to the possibility of operations in the former marsh areas between Al-Bara and Al-Qut, and noted the significance of rivers and bridges to every proposed course of action. Although none of the plans developed during this cycle were executed as written, the staff gained an invaluable understanding of the factors that would determine success or failure in the division's coming fight. Major General Conway, the new 1MEF commander who relinquished command of the division in early August, quoted General Ike Eisenhower on several occasions when referring to this rapid-fire planning environment. The plan was useless, but the planning was invaluable. These words would prove prophetic as the division's eventual scheme of maneuvers bore only slight resemblance to any of the original plans. The division was able to maintain tempo and flexibility solely by a high degree of situational awareness and full understanding of the commander's intent. Like many armies in rigid centralized control, the Iraqi army would likely collapse if cut off from their sources of strength. In this case, Baghdad. The limited mobility of the Iraqi forces made them extremely vulnerable to a campaign of rapid maneuver, and pre-planned Iraqi defensive positions would only be effective if attacked from the expected direction and with a slow tempo. The division planners worked aggressively to identify potential actions, timings, and routes that would allow the division to seize its initial objectives and sustain its momentum to Baghdad without playing to the enemy's strength. The G2 assessed that the Iraqi divisions from 3 and 4 Corps arrayed along the Iran-Iraq border did not pose a significant maneuver threat and could be safely bypassed. Once cut off from Baghdad, these units will be marginalized and would likely surrender. With 1MEF as a planned supporting effort to the V Corps attack to the west, 1st Marine Division could be most effective by defeating the Baghdad Republican Guard Infantry Division in Al-Qut, the enemy's operational center of gravity in southern Iraq. This was the forecast to be the fight of some significance, as it would mark the first engagement between coalition forces and the Republican Guard. 1st Marine Division intended to destroy the Baghdad Division in detail as an example to the rest of the Republican Guard and those remaining loyal to the Iraqi regime. The division had met some of these units in combat during the First Gulf War, and the CG reminded the planners that those Iraqis who had faced 1st Marine Division before were not eager for a rematch. Despite the sometimes chaotic planning environment, due to uncertain deployment schedules and operational constructs that changed with the diplomatic situation, the seeds of the division's basic operational concept were planted in this initial intelligence assessment. The optional planning team refined the division's concept of destroying Iraqi forces were necessary, but bypassing them was possible. In keeping with General Hackey's guidance, the division would fight terrain rather than prepare defensive positions as long as it offered a faster route to Baghdad. The division planned to bypass large elements of the Iraqi 3rd and 4 Corps and quickly get to the north side of the Tigris River. Once the division was across the strategic river, the Baghdad RG Infantry Division would be isolated and ripped for destruction. Cut off from Baghdad, the remaining defenders in the south could be reduced piecemeal with fewer casualties, and the division's chosen pace. In a coordinated action with the U.S. Army's 3rd Infantry Division, the 1st Marine Division would threaten to enter Baghdad itself in order to destroy the regime's true seat of power. By late summer of 2002, the division had formulated a basic plan. With the bypass of major elements of the 3 and the 4 RA Corps and fundamental premise, it was the division's assessment that by succeeding in building and maintaining momentum to Baghdad, the division would likely defeat large elements of the Iraqi armed forces without engaging them with direct fire. The plan was to destroy the 51st Mechanized Division in the AZ Zubar area, destroy elements of the 11th Infantry Division in the An Nazariya choke point, formed by a number of canals, bridges, and untrafficable terrain, then block the remaining forces to the east while the division continued the attack on Al-Qut and Baghdad. The hourglass choke point formed at An Nazariya was identified as key terrain. All attacking forces from the south of the Euphrates would be forced to trickle through the hourglass to get to the north side of the river. Passing both 5 Corps and 1 Meth forces through this choke point would be difficult under the best circumstances, and could result in the battlefield friction-induced delays. The coalition would be presenting a tempting chemical target to the enemy after breaching one of its key defensive positions, the Euphrates, and careful battlefield circulation planning would be a critical element in reducing this risk. The planners identified the unfinished highway, one bridge, to the west of An Nazariya as a preferred route that allowed movement north of the Euphrates River quickly, and out of the range of fans of artillery remaining in an An Nazariya urban area. Fighting through the city of An Nazariya and the enduring task of pacification in the wake of successful attack would likely pose a significant drain on the division's combat power and was to be avoided if practicable. In anticipation of the second stage of the division attack, the planning team refined their assessment of the attack routes from An Nazariya to Al-Qut. The intelligence assessment of trafficability off the major highways in southern Iraq were quite bleak, presenting challenges for the attack to destroy the Baghdad division in Al-Qut. The division's battle space did not include the Highway 1 corridor at this time, but the division recognized the necessity of finding a way to envelop the Al-Qut defenders by using fix and bypass tactics. If the division was constrained to attack up Highway 7, it would be forced to attack as a division in column and play directly into the Iraqi strengths along an expected avenue of approach. This was an unacceptable scheme of maneuver. The division worked aggressively to identify alternatives and other poor maneuverability. Along Highway 7 became a significant catalyst for some of the creative solutions of the Marines crafted to maintain the tempo of the attack. From creative engineering solutions to KC-130 highway landing strips, the solutions originally developed for the Highway 7 problems were later implemented across the battle space as a way to gain speed in the attack. Repeatedly, terrain experts told the division that many maneuver of Highway 7 was not possible. Thus, a formal attack of localized envelopment of Al-Qut appeared to be the only feasible scheme of maneuver. Because of the responsive highway quality support of the division experienced from the Marine Corps Intelligence Activity, or MCIA, in the past, the division turned to them again for analysis of alternatives for routes to the north. The product was a route-finding study via a mobility analysis, and took as precondition that some routes through the challenging terrain existed. An MCIA team led by Mr. Art Kohler and Captain Sean Brazil conducted the route-finding analysis and presented the results to the division. Together, the division and the MCIA were able to identify 3 potential bypass routes using combinations of canals, roads, farm roads, and limited segments of cross-country movement. Although not suitable for large convoys or combat service support (CSS) elements, these bypass routes offered some limited maneuver options. The division still assessed that it could defeat the Baghdad RG Infantry Division by cutting them off from the capital, leading to their rapid collapse. The MCIA identified routes were critical to this concept, and the division planning effort continued using these limited bypass opportunities as the plan-based maneuver routes for the Al-Qut fight.
The quarterdeck.
Stories from the duty NCO.
Oh hell no. You gotta be kidding me.
10 November 1775. I was born in a bomb crater. My mother was an M16 and my father is the devil. I eat concertina, piss napalm, and I can shoot a round through a fleece ass at 300 meters. I'm 246 years of romping, stomping hell, death, and destruction. I am the finest fighting machine the world has ever seen. Each moment that I live is an additional threat upon your life. I'm a rough-looking, roving soldier from the sea. I'm a cocky, self-centered, and overbearing. I do not know the meaning of fear, for I am fear itself. I'm a green amphibious monster made of blood and guts that arose from the ashes of my enemies. My sole purpose in life is to perpetuate death and destruction on the feasting of anti-Americanism throughout the globe. Wherever it may arise, I'm the dirty, nasty, stinky, sweaty, filthy, beautiful little son of a bitch that keeps the wolf away from the door over 246 years. Whenever it may arise and when my time comes, I will die a glorious and grotesque death on the battlefield, giving my life for the Corps. Mom and apple pie, I'm a United States Marine. We look like soldiers, talk like sailors, and slap the shit out of both of them. We stole the eagle from the Air Force, the rope from the Army, and the anchor from the Navy. Then, on the seventh day, while God rested, I overran its perimeter and took the globe, and I have been protecting it ever since. Warrior by day, lover by night, drunk by choice, and Marine by the grace of God alone. Semper Fi.
The Quarterdeck. You've been listening to The Quarterdeck with Miguel the Gunny Signs. I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining us this week and following along with us as we continue to read our book, With the 1st Marine Division in Iraq 2003, No Greater Friend, No Worst Enemy. As we continue to move on with that throughout the next couple of weeks, we're going to get into more detail about what actually happened during that initial push through Iraq in the liberation of those people. I also want to remind everybody that our podcast is now being offered on all of your podcasting applications. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, all of those. Just simply do a search for us and you will be able to find us. We also talked about the VA benefits and some of the benefits that you have with the education benefits. As we move on here in the next couple of weeks, we'll touch more in detail with a lot more of the different benefits. And I look forward to hearing from more of you on my Facebook page so I can get more of an idea of what questions you guys may have as far as different types of benefits that veterans have or that service members can actually start working on now before they get out of the service, so that way they're prepared to be successful in life. Enjoy your weekend, enjoy the time with your family, and let's not forget and remember why we celebrate Memorial Day this weekend, and remember all of those that we have lost that have given the ultimate sacrifice fighting for our great country. This is the Gunny sounding Liberty Call.
Get off the bus!
I do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend
The Constitution of the United States.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.